Hey, let me tell you a story. Picture a building that never learned how to be around people. No windows, too much light. A door that slides for you and then forgets how to open the other way. They called it the volunteer program, a harmless study on isolation and focus. Safe words on shiny paper. Sign here. 5 people showed up because life is expensive and curiosity is a kind of hunger. A nurse who needed a second paycheck and knew how to breathe with panic patients. A college kid after research credit who thought psychology was a mirror you could control. A night shift guy who craved quiet more than coffee. A barista who wanted something to tell her friends besides tips and burns. And one man who never said his name. He smiled once like a reflex and kept his hands in his pockets after. The bus dropped them on a road with no signposts. The building stood like a blank page. The glass door opened before anyone touched it. Inside, the air was sharp with bleach, the metal cool against fingertips. Clean in a way that makes you think you did something wrong. A woman in a coat said, "Welcome, please sign." And she stacked papers with words that get softer when you have bills. Observation, confinement, compensation, emergency suspension. They skimmed. They trusted the fonts. They signed. Lockers ate their phones and watches. Gray uniforms waited folded like hospital sheets. Shoes without laces. Wristbands blinking green. Health monitors. Perfectly safe. The inner door opened and the outside dropped off the map. A low hum settled in the walls and in the jaw. 5 rooms. White. Identical. A bed. A vent. A camera nested in the corner. One ceiling light that dimmed but never died. The nurse checked the vent and counted. For in, for hold, for out. The way she taught a guy on Christmas when nobody else came. It worked then. It did not work here. The first meal slid through a slot. Warm beige, not quite food. Water with a plastic edge. A soft voice above the door said, "Thank you for your cooperation. Remain calm. Breathe evenly." The kind of voice that sounds like help until it doesn't. The student traced a graph in the air with one finger. Stress on the Y. Time on the X. Curves peak. Curves always peak. Right. The barista rubbed a small burn scar on her wrist. A latte machine kiss from last summer. It stung now. Small proof she still belonged to a body. The night shift guy stared at the light and muttered rules from gas station nights. Move slow. Breathe slow. Let the drunks tire out. The nameless man watched his wristband blink like a patient heartbeat. After maybe 12 hours, the voice said sleep. The light cooled to gray. The hum deepened. The nurse lay flat and counted. The barista hummed under her breath like a lid on a pot. The student planned to fall asleep and woke up planning. The night shift guy spoke to the wall, just to check if his voice still worked. The nameless man kept his eyes open too long. When food returned, it was less. Saltless. The nurse asked how long this goes. The speaker said progress requires patience, and a picture cut through her head. A winter hallway, a code blue that rang forever. Patience was a pretty word for we were late. The next instruction said, "Do not sleep. Remain in bed. Focus on your heartbeat." Numbers whispered, not in order. 31, 10, 40, then nothing. Just the hum. Time stopped behaving. Hours ran together like spilled ink. Someone knocked, or it was the duct, or it was inside the skull. The next tone said group activity. Common room. Doors clicked. The hall glowed pale blue like a night shift freezer. The room had a round metal table and 5 chairs and a camera that looked like it had opinions. The screen coughed up their interview clips. Their own faces saying, "I can handle pressure. I trust the process." It felt like watching relatives at a funeral trying to smile. The voice said, "One of you must volunteer for an isolation chamber. Short duration, minimal risk." The nurse said, "I got it. I've stayed up through worse." 2 people in white suits came with black glass where I should be. They took her without words. The others sat. The barista picked at her nail until it bled. The night shift guy lined his breath with the hum. The student tried to calculate what 3 hours of nothing does to a person. When the nurse returned, her hands trembled. Her voice broke, pitch black, no sound, breathing right behind my head. Steady. I asked who. It didn't answer. I kept my eyes open until they burned. That night no one slept. The student whispered they are testing thresholds. The barista said I want out, I want out. The night shift guy said keep the rhythm or it eats you. The nameless man said nothing. Later the speaker said next phase. Emotional endurance. Empathy under stress. The screen showed 5 heartbeat lines labeled by room. Choose one to increase stimulation. It won't hurt. Just choose. The students snapped they're messing with us, seeing who cracks first. The barista hissed they want us to sell someone out. The nurse pressed her lips together like stitches. Nobody moved. The nameless man finally said I've been in rooms like this in other uniforms. Systems don't let you win. They let you choose how you lose. He pressed his own line. A low hum rolled through the floor and into Bones. He went very still, eyes open. When it passed he exhaled once. Said they wanted to see who flinched. Time flattened. Meals skipped the slot. Water tasted like a coin. The barista held her eyelids wide until they shook. The nurse stopped talking and watched the door gap for movement that wasn't there. The night shift guy covered the camera with a blanket. It beeped until he gave up. The nameless man counted 1 to 10 and back again. The voice returned once. Cooperation optimal. Reward incoming. A tray slid out with the same beige and 1 red candy. Glossy and bright like a brake light in fog. Nobody touched it. The red candy sat in a room with no other color. A dot on a map with no exits. The nurse's door clicked and opened a finger's width. The voice said remain in your area. The nurse froze. And for the first time the voice seemed closer than the speaker. Closer than the wall. Like it had learned her name from inside her head. By the time they called it day 5, it could have been 3 or 9. Reflections lagged on the metal-like faces were buffering. The student spoke to the camera like it could file a complaint. We're following instructions. Respond, please. Nothing answered but the air. The barista refused to blink, afraid the room would move when her eyes were closed. The night shift guy traced circles on the floor and counted backwards. 10-1, 10-1. A habit from 3 a.m. when fights almost start. The nurse rocked and whispered names from old charts. The nameless man listened for a second heartbeat under the floor. The light flickered twice. New phase. Social response evaluation. Gather in the common room. They obeyed because disobedience had nowhere to go. On the table sat a small thing wrapped in silver. The voice said one of you must unwrap the object. The nurse reached with steady hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The foil crackled loud in a room that hated sound. A black box. 1 red button. The voice said pressing it ends the test early. If you refuse, data is richer. 30 seconds. The red dot pulsed. The barista gave a thin laugh that didn't belong to her. This is a trap. The student said what if it's the door? Or a trick dressed like a door? The night shift guy rasped, what if it kills one of us? You want that on you. The nurse whispered, what if it does nothing and that's worse? 20 seconds. Decision required. Nobody reached. The light pulsed. The room held its breath. The nameless man looked at each of them like he was counting teeth. Then pressed the button. The light died. The hum stopped. Not quiet. Silence. The kind that sits on the chest. Then a dim wash returned. The speaker said thank you. Phase complete. Participants 4. Proceed to rooms. 1 chair was empty. The students. The camera above his bed coughed static. The nurse shouted his name and got the hum back. The barista slammed the door with both fists. Open it. Now. The speaker said subject for made their choice. The night shift guy screamed until the voice broke and laughed until nothing came out. The nurse said breathe, please breathe, like she was talking to a monitor that wouldn't listen. Later the speaker said final stage. Individual reflection. Write your last thought on the wall using your hand. One by one they did like there was still a grade. The nurse wrote I tried. The barista smeared help that looked like a bruise. The night shift guy pressed his palm print over and over until the oil turned gray. The nameless man stared at a blank space until the idea of writing felt like a trick. He whispered, "I have nothing to write. I am not part of this anymore." The lights went blue like a hospital ad for in the morning. A different voice took over. Lower. Human, a manager voice. "Your contribution has advanced understanding of fear. Retention acceptable. You will be remembered." The nurse shouted, "You said safe. You said research." Her wristband blinked red. A pulse under the skin. The hum returned deeper. Slower. The bed shivered. The barista clamped her ears and said, "Make it stop, make it stop." The night shift guy muttered 10 to 1 and skipped 7 without noticing. The nameless man whispered, "It's not a voice now. It's a thing." Someone whispered his name from nowhere. Maybe the wall, maybe the duct. Somewhere above them, real footsteps walked in a line. Boots on metal. A door opened. People in clean suits came through like a weather system. They lifted wrists, scanned tags, spoke through filters. Emotional response 98% complete. Acceptable variance. Prepare batch 2. They did not say please. They did not say sorry. They left. The seals closed. The hum steady. The camera rotated by a whisper and found the nameless man in the middle room. The red candy still on his tray. He picked it up, turned it. A promise pretending to be sugar. Reward shaped like consent. He looked straight into the lens. "I steady in a way that felt older than this week. You are not studying us," he said. "You are tearing us apart and you like it." The smile that followed was tired and human and not for them. The picture wobbled and flattened into snow. The hum kept breathing. The nurse sat on her bed and counted and did not reach 8. The barista lay down and watched the ceiling. The night shift guy pressed his palm to the wall and waited to feel a pulse. Time did not return to normal. It just stopped caring. Then the first voice, the soft one from the beginning, came back like music in a store you forgot you were in. "Welcome to the volunteer program. Your cooperation has been recorded. The program does not end. It resets. The door is waiting for the next one. If you are listening, you are eligible." And somewhere in the hall a lock practiced opening, and somewhere outside a bus practiced stopping, and inside the rooms the light dimmed to almost night and then thought better of it, and never quite let go.